Hello there and welcome. This is Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, and we're talking the history of wrestling in Georgia. This is part one, even though you may have, if you're watching this live, you may have actually seen 2 and 3 already. But we went down and redone this one because the audio was so bad, and that one, half of it, you couldn't even hear what we were saying. So here we are, the history of Atlanta, part one, the history of Georgia. Part one. I want to share something with you real quick. In 1887, pro wrestling was being held at the Concordian Hall in Atlanta, Georgia. That's a long time ago to be able to find information on that. I couldn't really find a lot of matches on it, but I did find that they had professional wrestling there. And I want to share this. Let me see if I can hit this and share this little video of a guy that went down there. It's called Hotel Roll now. And he went down there and he videotaped just a little portions of the actual Concordian Hall. Now that it's a motel, and we can talk over it when we look at it. But well, I thought we'd be able to talk over that, but we wasn't able to talk over that. And evidently, we won't be able to on any of the video clips. So I'll have to put them on later on. But that is the Concordian Hall. There was motels in there, and I'm not for sure there's actual motel in there right now. But 1887, and that building still stands today in Atlanta.
Wow.
There were more of this video. It doesn't seem like a place that you want to go and spend a long period of time. It did not look, the whole area looked a little run down, but it was very, very interesting place. Something else we figured out, in 1904, we found matches that were held at the Lowe's Grand Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and in 1978, a fire destroyed that theater. But I'm gathering, I would throw some pictures up here, but I did not know I wouldn't be able to talk over them. But the building, they had to do this on the stage because it was built. It was just a theater, and it was on the stage. So I'm pretty sure we've done shows on stages before. Pretty sure you couldn't actually see if you were sitting on the first couple of levels. But they said that in the story that I saw, that they were selling this place out, and it was like 3,200 seats in this Lowe's, and it burnt down in 1978. And we all know in 1918, the Atlanta City Auditorium. I think we've all talked about that. But in 1905, wrestling was held at something called the Atlanta Athletic Club. Couldn't find any photos of it. But they ran that till 1911. But I did see that they only drew like 200 people almost every show. But people like Joe Stetcher, Frank Gotch, they were all coming there. Just not great.
Could that have been a turn of the century bad neighborhood?
Could have been. Maybe. Might have been. All right.
And it did say athletic club, so there might have been a membership that you had to do to go there.
There's a possibility. All right, Jack. We'll pick up in 1926.
In 1926, pro wrestling will become a huge attraction in Atlanta at the City Auditorium with 6,000 people attending on April 13th, 1926 to witness this card. Pete Dallas defeated Bill Lewis. Taro Mayaki defeated John Paxos by 2 falls. And the World Heavyweight title match was Joe Stetcher defending against Stanislaus Zbyszko. Then on May 19th, 1926, another 6,000 fans watched the following card. Pete Sauer defeated E.A. Oaks. Dick Draviscourt defeated Nick Velkoff, and the World Heavyweight title match was Joe Stetcher defeating Jim Londos.
By this time, wrestling is really getting big time. And in 1930, they go to Spiller Field a lot in the summertime. And they ran there a lot, as well as the auditorium, but they would go to the Spiller Field, which I believe held like 15,000 people. And they would pack these places. And Rodney, I think we got a couple of the cards from there.
Yeah, Spiller Field in Atlanta, Georgia, September 1st, 1930, is Bill Bartush defeating Milo Steinborn, the German strongman, by disqualification, 2 out of 3 falls. Paul Jones of Texas defeated Tom Marvin, the Indian grappler, 2 falls to none. And then on September the 15th, 1930, Atlanta, Georgia, Bill Bartush of Chicago defeated Charlie Fox of Cleveland. I wonder if that's Tennessee. World heavyweight.
That's Cleveland, Ohio.
In a while. World Heavyweight Championship is Jim Londos defeats Paul Jones in that match. September the 24th, 1930, Atlanta City Auditorium, 2 out of 3 falls. Dick Schicott defeated Joe Kamar. The giant light, what in the world is that? I have no idea what that kind of word. But they listed Schicott as the former world heavyweight champion.
And we're going to jump to 1934. A lot of wrestling happened between those times. We're going to jump to 1934, and Jack's got a couple of them.
December 11th, 1934, which was a Wednesday night in Atlanta, Dutch Green of Washington defeated John Dameron of Atlanta. Paul Jones of Houston, Texas defeated Sol Seigel of New York, and that match ended in a draw. Orville Brown of Kansas City defeated George Hills of Wisconsin. And then on to the December the 18th of 1934 in Atlanta again, George Romanoff of Leningrad defeated Pat Brown of Chicago. Dorv Roche of Scranton, Pennsylvania defeated Chief Chiwaki of Oklahoma. And the World Heavyweight Championship was on the line when Jim Londos from New York was the champion, defeated and retained against Orville Brown of Kansas.
Even then, they understood booking. Orville Brown on December 11th wins his match against George Hills, and then he gets the title match on December 18th in Atlanta against Jim Londos, which was drawing tremendous houses at this time, even though we didn't have a number there. Jack Bloomfield and Count Rossi. And everybody's, well, what does this mean? This was the first recorded cage match in pro wrestling history, occurred on June 25th, 1937 in Atlanta, Georgia. And rather than the steel cages of today, the ring was wrapped in chicken wire in order to keep challenger Jack Bloomfield's opponent, Count Petro Rossi, from escaping the ring. The results is unknown. The following week, Rossi wasn't on the card. So evidently, he was the one that went down. Coming soon, we see Paul Jones on a lot of these matches. So coming soon, Paul Jones moves to Atlanta, Georgia, and becomes one of the most important promoters in Georgia wrestling history. Rodney?
Andrew Lutzy was the son of Russian immigrants who pursued wrestling at local YMCA. At the time, Nebraska was the hub of amateur wrestling, and he was able to learn under locker room hookers, Farmer Burns and Clarence Eklund, alongside with Pete Sauer, the future Ray Steele, and other hungry wrestling young grapplers. Lutzy relocated to Texas and took the name Paul Jones, which he kept for the remainder of his time in professional wrestling. Jones met many of the top talent in 1920, 1930s, including Joe Stetcher, Jim Browning, Dick Schicott, Lou Plummer, Jim Londos, and his old friend Ray Steele. Although he might not be the most notable wrestler of the time period, Paul Jones made some connections that would set him up for success as a promoter, not unlike Joe. I don't know that name.
I think that would be Malco Wiz, wouldn't it?
Malco Wiz, okay. And Carl Sapopoulos, Cowboy Luttrell, and Leroy McGurk, who were all wrestlers turned promoters. In 1933, Jones was involved in a fatal car wreck that impacted his career.
Right.
Fellow wrestler Katsoneros and Jones were driving from Nashville, Tennessee to New Orleans, Louisiana for a wrestling show. His passenger was fellow wrestler Paul Jones. Katsoneros fell asleep at the wheel while driving in Eutaw, Alabama. His car flipped over in the crash, killing him and seriously injuring Jones, who did survive, of course, the incident. George was just 40 years old at the time of his death. Although Jones wrestled for many more years, he was never at the same level. He settled in Houston, working some for Morris Siegel as a referee and did some wrestling, but he set his sights on bigger avenues. Shortly before the end of World War II, Jones headed to Atlanta to begin promoting. Pro wrestling was on the cusp of a boom, and Jones needed to do little more than put the cards together.
And very successful. Probably, I would venture to say, the most successful wrestling promoter in Atlanta, Georgia. And we'll be telling you more about Paul Jones and his history of professional wrestling coming up as we move toward Georgia Championship Wrestling